The double X economy is a concept that says that women are emerging from a shadow economy. It's not that they have not had an economy, they have had one, but we are only just now able to see and measure them. And that's largely because prior to recent years, they have been excluded from monetization, and we work in an economy that only measures that can be monetized. But now, because of they've been excluded from paid labor in the past, excluded by inheritance laws, still most of the world, unable to invest, unable to own, unable to enter into a contract. This is an excluded economy from any kind of record tracking that we know to a large extent, but they're emerging now. They're also traditionally constrained in terms of both mobility and communication, so they are silenced and they are held apart, and we don't know they're there. If you travel in India, they will take you to all of these wonderful palaces and forts and things, and inevitably they will show you the women's cloister and the women's market. Okay, entirely separate space for the women to trade. They tend to be forced into the informal economy, which of course is unregulated as well as untaxed, and therefore they don't have the protection of law in work a lot of the time. The women's economy is largely characterized by the trade of bodies, that because women have not been able to own other kinds of capital assets, this is all they've got. And so the only way that they can provide for themselves legitimately or respectably is to marry, and that's for the lucky ones. The ones that can't marry become prostitutes, and the ones that really get unlucky become sex slaves. But the double X potential is also very good. There is a report that came out by UNICEF in 2007 that looks at the whole world and makes the conclusion that the best thing we can do for the world's children is to empower their mothers. And the reason for that is across the world, if you give women a little extra money and the freedom to decide how to spend it, they will spend it on their children. They will spend it on their health, they will spend it on their education, they will spend it on their nutrition, and as a result, male or female, those children will be better cared for, and the community benefits from this. So this is what I mean by consumption as building human capital. I want to talk to you about the big picture, because we are living right now in the light of some information that is going to change everything. In just the last 10 to 15 years, there is now several global databases documenting gender inequality around the globe. Now, it's important to understand how crucial and how new this is, because before 1995, when the UN started collecting this data, our information about gender inequality was local, and it was largely anecdotal, and it was almost entirely focused on the United States and the United Kingdom. Now, regardless of which of these databases you look at, if you look at a ranking, they are virtually the same. This particular one is the World Economic Forum's Gender Gap Report. They measure gender inequality across 4 dimensions: education, health, economics, and politics. What you're seeing here is an index, and this is the top 20 nations. Mostly the pattern that you're seeing here is that these are the Western industrialized democracies that are at the top. Notice that in the components, that education is very, very strong here, which would lead us to an idea that education is an important component of women's equality, because 100 is good here. But you can see that even the top 20 nations fall down pretty far when it comes to economic equality. Now, let's take a look at the bottom 20. And you can see that these are countries that are mostly in sub-Saharan Africa or the Middle East, that the pattern that we see is very different from the top 20. What we see here is that the education is very, very poor, and that health is also not very good, although it's better than education. But economics actually is better than the top 20. Now, this is counterintuitive, because in the West we tend to equate equality and labor participation, and this turns out not to be the key, because in the developing world, women are absolutely beasts of burden, and they are worked as if they were oxen. The whole question of sanitary care and girls' education is really, when you scratch it enough, not about education so much as it is about reproductive freedom. It's about sexual sovereignty. And reproduction is something that is a key double X constraint. It's probably the key women's economy constraint, because it inhibits participation in the formal labor force. When you're constantly getting pregnant or you have to take care of children, it's very hard to hold a formal job. Probably the hottest leverage there is keeping teenage girls in secondary school. And it is one of the stickiest challenges that there is in the developing world. But I want you to understand that not only do we have good data to suggest that if you can keep girls in school into the secondary level, it has all kinds of positive benefits in terms of infant mortality, maternal mortality, disease, nutrition. But it happens very quickly because girls in the developing world tend to get pregnant at an early age. So if you can hold that off, right, it has an impact within like 5 years.